Application modernization. What is the best way to approach application modernization? As at the moment, the definition of modernization is not clear to a lot of people. What do you mean by modernization? And part of what we will be doing today and on Thursday and even after that will be to understand clearly what modernization actually entails. Because it's not a simple concept. And is not a silver bullet to achieve it either. And this is the question that we need to answer quite clearly before we get into any technical details about how we're actually going to achieve the modernization. We have to know what that modernization actually is. And there's one place where modernization has to begin, and only one place. And that's in your head. You have to start thinking modernization. Whatever that means, you've got to think it first before you can do it. And so probably the most difficult thing in modernization is not the technical aspect of doing the job of modernizing your application database and its environments, but to get your mind to start thinking in a modern paradigm. And honestly, I'm going to show you over the next 20 odd sessions or whatever it is, I'm not even sure. Yeah, about 20 odd sessions or 40 odd sessions, I think. I'm going to show you a lot of things that contribute to modern applications, to modern databases, to modern techniques. But none of them are going to last or stick if it's not your mind and your approach to the whole modernization philosophy that gets modernized first. And this, of course, takes me straight back to Albert Einstein. You see, I could have thought these up myself, but I didn't. I used other people. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. I've picked up another one which I haven't put in here, is that old keys don't open new doors. It's the same philosophy. If you continue to think the same way you have been thinking up to now about the development of applications and systems and databases, you are simply going to recreate what you have now. We need to have new thought patterns, new mental approaches in order to create and solve the problems and modernize our systems. Now, one of the important things, critical things that occur during the process of modernization is, whereas in the past we had these large monolithic programs, 220,000 lines of code, and believe me, that's not a joke. I worked on a program that big. We have these large monolithic programs. In the early days of RPG, in display files, when we had to use the cycle, if any of you remember this, these were huge programs. The early days of RPG on the System 34 and the System 36, we couldn't call other programs using RPG. So we had to write the complete solution in one set of code. Modernization goes in the other direction. It minimizes the different components of code into single function or single thought processes, which can then be wrapped up in procedures, modules, service programs other programs, etc., etc. They can be wrapped up. What will happen when we modernize, and the more we modernize, and you will see it as we go through the course, we start getting more and more smaller and smaller and smaller programs, procedures, modules. So what's happening is we are multiplying the number of objects and massively reducing their size. So we are in the game of producing systems with smaller pieces. And the thing that comes to mind most as a good way of illustrating this is Legos. Now, I'm sure that all of you know what Legos are. But that's what we are going to do when we modernize applications. We're going to create building blocks with different attributes, and we are then going to plug them together to provide the business logic that we need. And this takes me back to another quote. Don't worry, this stops after a while once I get you so saturated. Alvin Toffler again. You've got to think about the big things while you are doing the small things, so that all the small things go in the right direction. And that is modernization. You've got to get your mind around the big picture, and then you have to start creating the components. But only if you have a mind around the big picture can all your little components form a nice set of Legos that are all heading in the right direction. I'm already sensing, even though I can't see any of your faces, but usually at about this point in time, everybody is saying, my goodness, I don't really know what you're talking about or where you're going with this thing. Please understand that the first couple of sessions are going to be a shock. They most definitely are. It's the beginning of the unlearn phase, where we've got to start thinking in a very different way. And although it seems a little bit random, it's not actually entirely undeliberate. You've got to get your mind out of the rut and start thinking new things. Okay, I've just had a comment from one of my previous students on this course who said it's hard to unlearn but still support the current as well as thinking big and small at the same time. Now that sort of sums it up. You've got to carry on thinking like you used to think all the time, because all the stuff that's there has still got to be maintained. Then you've got to think about the big solution and the small things all at the same time. And it's not easy. And nobody, and this is something that I have to stress over and over and over again. It's not easy to modernize. And if you want to modernize properly, you get your mind into the whole process. And of course, the reason people are so scared of modernizing, and I mean that, people shy away from it, because it's actually you get overcome by a sense of future shock. You don't know where to begin, how to proceed, and at the same time you need and are absolutely required to minimize the risk to your organization so that you don't destroy what you have in place. And this course, this set of 24 sessions, I have been reliably informed, is intended to give you the tools and a pattern of thinking that will aid you in moving into the modernization paradigm. I am not going to be giving you the silver bullet. I'm not going to be giving you all the answers to all the problems, because that would take a lot more than 24 sessions. And each company's applications and logic requirements and needs are different. So there is no one answer to any one of the problems. So the focus of this set of sessions is going to be to give you an idea of what modernization, what is required to start a modernization process. And you, and this is honestly, you are the people that are going to have to drive it. You can't call in a contractor and say, come modernize my system for me. Because it'll take that contractor 10 years to become familiar enough with your system, or as familiar as you are, in order to be able to make the right decisions about modernization. So it has to be done the other way around. You have to be the people who do the modernization, and you need to get assistance in what steps and how you approach the modernization. Because the knowledge of your system is sitting in your heads, and that is the power, or the thing that is needed most to modernize, is a knowledge of the existing system. Right. Let's get down to here. This is a little thing to try and illustrate what I mean when I say modernization is difficult. Legacy or heritage systems, just put yourselves in the position of the little gold man there. And I'm sure that sometimes you feel exactly like a hamster in a wheel, running to keep the wheel turning, and you can't stop. There's some things about that picture I need to point out. First of all, you're running uphill all the time. It's no downhill. It's all uphill. And secondly, you're running with bars in front of your face, so the view is lousy. Let's look at where we want to go. We want to actually, once we've modernized our system, at the end, we want to be where that gold man is, the second one. We want to be on top of the wheel. Nice view. You're running downhill. But I'm pretty sure you can understand what I'm trying to say here. Getting up on top of the wheel, practicing to stay there, is much harder than being inside the wheel. You need to make a big change. It's a learning curve. It requires commitment, skill, and a drive. Once you get it, your life becomes a lot easier. Because once you have a modernized system, you can do things faster. You can adjust your system quicker. And you will be hearing me talk about all sorts of benefits of modernization. Agility, ease of testing, etc., etc., etc. And as we go through all the different components, you will see where I'm going with this. But this is to say, you've got to get out of the wheel and you've got to get up on top. That requires learning, and it requires practice and perseverance. Who am I? Nalini Gold. Welcome. So that is another picture of why I'm saying modernization is not something you can do over the weekend. It's a long-term commitment to making things better. When they are, and the thing here is you may never modernize part of your system. It may not be worth it. You may choose to modernize only those critical components or those most utilized components. You don't have to do a whole modernization. You need to modernize everything to make your life easier, and some stuff may not be worth it. But there's a lot that is worth it and you need to commit to.